So we've already talked about what the subsurface environment is, and I'm going to save talking about sources of pollution so we can have a bit of a conversation about it in class. And here we're going to talk about movement in groundwater or saturated soils. So this section of the course is going to talk a little bit about groundwater, give you a little bit of an introduction to it, and then talk about what makes groundwater move and how fast does it move. And we're not going to cover all of this in videos, we're just going to talk about the first two parts. So first, in this video, we're going to talk about groundwater, just a little bit of an introduction to it. So this is global freshwater distribution. You can see the vast majority of freshwater is frozen, at least at this point. But 21% of it is below ground in groundwater and aquifers. And you can see the majority of the class we've been talking about surface water, and that really only makes up a tiny fraction of the freshwater on the globe. But it does make up a lot of the freshwater that we use. We only use, at least in the US, groundwater only accounts for about 23% of the freshwater that we use in the US. Still, that's quite a bit. About 82,600 million gallons per day. That's an awful lot. And this figure down here shows you what we use it for, at least in 2005, what we used it for. Public supply, that's drinking water mainly. Domestic use is people with private drinking water wells. Irrigation, livestock, aquaculture, industrial uses, mining, and thermoelectric. So you can see the most of it going to drinking water and irrigation, a lot of it going to irrigation. This is where a lot of the water in the West comes from. So this is the distribution of aquifers across the US. That's what this figure here is showing you. And aquifers can be sandy, silty, gravelly, clayey, or some combination thereof. And they can also just be porous rock. So this is just to kind of orient you to look at sort of what the groundwater distribution looks like. This is the Ogallala Aquifer, and it holds as much water but spread over a much larger area as Lake Huron over here. The blue spots are unconsolidated sand and gravel aquifers near the surface. Yellow is semi-consolidated sand and gravel aquifers, and all the gray stuff is sand and gravel aquifers of alluvial and glacial origin. And you can see they're all north of sort of that furthest southern extent of the last glaciation period. Okay, so that is all that we're going to talk about right now for groundwater introduction. We'll talk a little bit more about pollution in groundwater and below ground in class.